Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I wanted to go over with y'all a very beginner-friendly project, which is just making a bead link and focal point necklace. Now here we're starting with, you could use any focal point really, but this is a seashell that I have electroformed with a little bit of wire wrapping. I did the wrapping before I electroformed it. I do have links to how I make these down in the video description, as well as like different playlists and stuff. But you could use any kind of bead that is top drilled or any kind of charm or something. Here I have another one in a different style where the chain would just go right through our bail. Well, where the chain would go right through our bail. I really do try to be professional, you guys, but gravity works. So however you do the connection point, for this project I'm focusing on having the connection points be one on either side. Huzzah! Super durable. That's excellent. Okay, so I have started out. I love these bead trays because they come with a little travel lid that I can put basically all of the components into the compartments, and then I would snap the lid down and it holds it relatively in place. The beads will still move around, but as long as they aren't super small, it's pretty good. And honestly, I never take projects like this on the road with me, but I do like the bead tray cover just for keeping the dog fur and dust out of something. We keep our windows open quite a bit, and so in certain times of the year there'll just be green pollen on everything. But I really like this style of tray for laying out all of our different beads that we're going to be using. Now I don't have the density of my bead placement like side by side the way that they would be if they were on like a strung necklace, because we're going to be making bead links very much like for those of y'all who are familiar with like rosary projects and things like that. I'm using a combination of 18 and 20 gauge wire because some of my beads here, like these 8mm ones, I know will take the 18 gauge wire without a problem. But with some of our 5 and 4mm amethyst that I'm going to be using later on, I'm going to have to use the 20 gauge because they just won't fit sometimes onto the 18 gauge. I do get my wire from parawire.com for this project. It's an enameled copper, so even though it looks very nice, you know, antique copper color and everything, it's not going to leave a green residue on my neck. Now, for our focal point, I have used a product called Renaissance Wax, which is a microcrystalline wax polish, just like it says on the label. And I just use a little polishing cloth and rub a little bit on, and it doesn't make a permanent barrier. But I have also been experimenting with stuff like this, the Mod Podge Ultra. It's a surface sealer, and for something that's not going to be flexible, I actually just take the cap off and use an inexpensive paintbrush to just put a little bit on there on the back side where it's going to be touching my skin, and that way the front can oxidize and polish up normally. I'm only really worried about where it's coming into contact on my skin. So this is a plaid product. Y'all are familiar with Mod Podge. It's good stuff, but I really like it in the spray bottle too because I'm experimenting with using it on polymer clay, but that's neither here nor there. That's for a future tutorial. But I'm just really excited that Mod Podge is expanding their product lines. So that's a way that you can get that nice copper color look without, you know, turning your skin green. So we're going to begin by, I like to start in the center and build my way out. That way, as I lay my pieces, I can determine if I'm going to need more wire or more beads, you know. Okay. And I also do like to work on the spool, which means I'm not cutting my wire, but I'm just going to take our beads and thread them on. And you can see I have them laid out in order, kind of like in the way that they would be strung. That way I don't have to think about it a whole lot. it lets me set my project up, and then I can just put on a show or, you know, listen to an audiobook or something, like really just zone out for a bit and just get into the crafting or let my mind wander. So this one, you can see I'm actually having a pretty hard time getting this bead on here. The hole's a little smaller than I remembered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to make a 90-degree bend. Let me zoom in just a hair for you guys. I'm actually going to get this shifted out of the way. So I'm going to make a little 90-degree bend. I'm going to use my round nose pliers, and you can actually see I had filed in a little notch just to kind of delineate, you know, a point on my pliers. Used to, that's the size that I made all of my loops. I'm actually becoming fond of a slightly smaller loop size. I'm just wrapping around there. And you don't want to squeeze so hard on your pliers. Like, you need to hold it firmly so it's not slipping around and getting away from you, but you don't have to do such a tight death grip that it starts pinching your wire. And the more you practice with that, the better you'll get at gauging. And now I'm using my bent nose pliers to just wrap 2 or 3 times. I think I'm just going to go 2 on this one around our center wire, and I'm gonna snip, and I save all my little scraps because I melt them down to experiment with. Even with the enameled stuff, I keep it separate from my bare copper wire, but the enameling does burn off. I do it outside with a respirator on, but it's pretty neat. More and more videos coming back on that soon. So I'm gonna come in with my pliers and smush that little tail down. That way, no pokey bits. And now we have a nice looking little wrapped loop. Move our bead up to where we want it. And I'm going to gauge, that's 2, almost 3 millimeters of space that it takes up for the wire. So I'm going to give myself at least that much space again. I prefer my work to be on the tighter side as opposed to having room for the beads to move around. So that's personal preference though. So doing another 90-degree bend, inserting my pliers at roughly the same spot. You can mark them with like Sharpie and stuff if you want. And then wrapping around. And if it's cumbersome for you to function with the wire attached to the spool, you could go ahead and just snip it off and just keep working. But I found whenever I'm making, just sometimes I'll be making hundreds of these links in a day, I'll just string up all my beads first and then just go. And it saves minute amounts of wire, but that stuff starts to add up. So we're snipping, come in here with our bent nose and give it a smush. And now I do like for my links to be in line with each other, nice and tidy. So I'm just going to twist that around. And there we are. There is a bead link. And we're going to do this a bunch of times. So, and you can see the length difference too once it's said and done, like once it's actually made. I'm gonna line those guys up. So if I were to string them just end to end on like some beading wire, like beading floss, versus when they're actually together, it adds on another centimeter, almost another ½ inch. So just depending on how many wraps you do. So that's something to take into consideration when you're figuring out how many beads you're going to need. Now also, whenever I'm working off the spool, my wire will get pretty wonky. You can straighten that out with your fingers. It's one of my favorite things about parawire is they are very malleable. And then if you're very particular about it, you can use nylon jaw pliers. Now that will work hard in your work, make it a little bit stiffer as it compresses those molecules and kind of stiffens everything up, but gets it right back good to brand new use again, and that makes it a lot easier to thread beads onto. So I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of this necklace doing the wrapped bead links like that, and then I'm going to meet you guys right back here for assembling it and adding the finishing touches. Our next step in this project is to make some jump rings, and I'm going to use this 18 gauge wire and some bamboo skewers. So I'm going to go ahead and just start wrapping them around the skewer, wrapping the wire around the skewer, leaving a little bit of tail for me to hold on to. That way I can leverage around. And I want to try to get my wire to be as tight and nice and even as possible. And I think for this project I'm going to use 2 to 3 inches. Now also, I try to keep in mind whenever I put on these bamboo skewers, whenever I am wrapping, it bites into the wood. The wire does, under its own tension, because it's a very soft wood. That's just, you're going to get that with wooden mandrels. If you don't like that, use metal ones, but I try to use a comparable size of wooden mandrel to metal mandrel. And then we can loosen it a bit by kind of just gripping and almost unscrewing the wood, because it threads it a little bit. And you can just pull it out. But I'm going to want the wood to stay there inside our mandrel because I use it and it's very helpful, especially for these thinner wires. It's very helpful when I get to cutting. Or let me go ahead and just clip the end off because I stab myself with it a lot and I don't like that. So gonna keep just twisting and twisting, kind of missing the little tail there. You can grip it with your nylon gel pliers and twist if your hands, like if your knuckles and stuff start hurting you. You don't want to cross the wire over what you just did. There we are. And again, does not hurt at all to get this kind of loosened up inside the wire. There we go. Gonna do just another inch or so. Oops. I very much prefer the method that my partner and I typically use, which is like using we made a coiling jig and we have a ringinator set up, which is like a drill powered, like drill driven jeweler's blade inside like an arbor with a self like lubricating system. But that's because, you know, we've invested that into our business. But if you're just getting started or you don't want to make that kind of investment into equipment like that, this is a route we can go. I also believe the company We've Got Mail uses parawire to make their jump rings, and I think, I don't know off the top of my head if they sell more than their kits, but you might be able to get jump rings that match from We've Got Mail. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to come up real close to the end here and just snip off that bit. And now we're going to move over to the jeweler's bench and start saw cutting these. So here's my jeweler bench setup. I have this drawer that catches all of my mess. I love this bench because it does have this sliding drawer. It has a few drawers over here that are very heavy duty, so you can hold a lot of weight in them. It has these armrests, a bench pin that I added, a bench pin that it came with. This is my stainless steel mandrel for rings, another armrest, and lots and lots of surface space for messing up or cluttering or organizing, however you like. There are affiliate links for all the different tools and materials that I'm using, as well as the desk down in the video description below, but you can purchase through them if you'd like to support the channel. That's very helpful, but if not, it's at least a starting place that for if you want to, you know, kind of search and find your own items. So getting settled on the bench pin. We've got the dowel in the center there. I always have trouble getting started. I'm very new at using a jeweler's saw, so if y'all have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. So I'm just getting started, and let's see if we can't zoom in just a little bit. And so we're going to be cutting into the wood here. So some of them come off onto our saw blade here. Some of them have pinged into my lap. Some of them are caught down in our dropping pan. Oh, there goes another one. Where'd it go? I don't know. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take some masking tape, and I am just gonna lay it here on the back side just to hold on to stuff. And we can move these rings down, hopefully, off of our mandrel. Typically, I do like to coil the wire on a metal mandrel and then slide it onto a wooden mandrel, but I didn't have a metal one that matched this size, so this is what we're working with. And if you can't slide it, we can always come in and throw our stuff on the ground. But we can always come in with our snips, get some of that wood out of the way, and get right back to sawing. Oops. So again, I feel like I have a lot of technique to improve upon, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from y'all how you would recommend to cut rings with a saw blade. But since I'm relatively new to this, doing it by hand, I thought I'd share what I'm doing, because sometimes what seems obvious to somebody who's been doing something for years and has a ton of experience under their belt, I don't even know how much I don't know about what I'm doing, you guys. So just taking you along for the ride. So I'm gonna keep cutting through all these, and I'll meet y'all right back here to assemble the necklace. So we've made all of our beads into wrapped links. I have budgeted for 2 rings per little join, as you can see, because I think one just kind of looks a little dinky. So let's go ahead and add those jump rings in. We just hook through both links and then give it a close. I still have much to be desired from my hand cut saw cut jump rings, so I'm going to keep working on that, but I try to get as nice and smooth and clean of a closure as I can with no pokey bits. And so we are going to do the other side of this. And the way that, excuse me, the way that we're going to attach it to our focal point is going to be with some jump rings that I had coiled and cut that are 18 gauge 3/16 inch rings. These I used a 20 gauge for our other jump rings, but we're just going to hook through right there and then add on our chain. Again, just making sure we've got as nice of a closure as what we can manage. I think that's going to look really nice. And so now I'm just going to start assembling here on the other side. So there's one jump ring, and there's another. And this can be time consuming, but it makes a chain that's very durable, has a wonderful substance to it. Like, you know, it's not heavy, so I don't want to say it's got a nice weight to it, but it definitely feels, you know, solid to wear. And you're going to be hard pressed to break this necklace too. Oops. And so we are just going to continue adding these jump rings until we have both sides of our necklace completely assembled. So we have finished up the other side of our chain. We're going to go ahead and attach it to our focal point. You can see that's coming out pretty nice. I think that I like that. I am pleased. And now, how do we get this to actually close and go around our necks like a proper necklace? So here I have a lobster claw clasp. You could use whatever kind that you like. I actually have some other tutorials on how to make your own wire clasp, but for myself personally, I love lobster claws. They don't get tangled in my hair as much, and even when I'm doing like yoga or hanging upside down or something, my jewelry still stays on. I unfortunately don't have any left in the antique copper color that I usually would have used with this, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to be going through with another 18 gauge ring. You want to make sure that it'll fit through the loop on your lobster claw clasp, and then we're just going to attach that directly to the chain. And now here I have some chain from the Ring Lord. This is enameled steel. It's a very strong chain, and I like using it for an extender. So here we have, I'm going to do 4 inches of extension, and that way I can adjust the necklace to fit the neckline of whatever I'm wearing. So just open up that ring and close it. Now this is their 4mm chain, and I like it because it's not too bulky, but it is large enough that I can very easily hook our lobster claw clasp through it at any point along that length. Now also, I like for my necklaces to want to stay centered, so what I'm going to do here is I actually have some, where did I go? Rummaging through my beads. I have some amethyst drops salvaged from, oh, there's the timer, cooking food. I have some amethyst drops salvaged from an older necklace, and I'm going to go ahead and wire wrap this up. Here I have a piece of wire with a little loop wrapped, just like how we did for our links. Let me get all this chain tucked out of the way. And we're just going to do a quick briolet wrap. You can wrap this however you want, but I like to just do, we'll bring it in to here. And I want the distance of wire that I'm leaving right here to equate the distance from the hole to the tip of the bead. So you can measure it if you want. I'm just going to eyeball it. Yay, it worked more or less. And if it didn't work, we just straighten it back out, bring it out a little bit more. Ah, that's much better. I very much prefer that. And now we'll bring it back up on the other side, and I am just going to wrap around like this. And I don't want to leave any pokey bits, and since this is going to be dangling down my back whenever I wear the necklace, I don't want to do a curly cue, because if I wear my hair long or if I'm wearing like a strappy outfit, that can just get, it'll be a mess sometimes. So I'm going to snip that excess off, smoosh our little tail wire down very securely. No little pokey bits. Nice. I want to be able to wear my wire wrapping work over like a knit top or, you know, anything and not have it scratch or snag. So now I'm going to take another one of our 18 gauge rings, and I'm just going to hook it right here onto the end of our necklace. And so I think this makes a very lovely counterweight for the focal point in the front. That way you don't have to worry about your necklace shifting one way or the other. And I think it actually looks really elegant whenever you're wearing the piece, to have that little kind of chain going down, you know, the center of your back. If you're not used to it, sometimes it can freak you out. Like, if it's been a minute since I've worn a necklace with a counterweight, I'll be like, what the heck? But no, it's just my jewelry rolling around on my back. I don't know. If you're gonna wear something pretty in the front, why not in the back as well? So there is that. And also what I like about it is no matter where you hook on the chain, that counterweight still just hangs like a plumb bob. And that's quite nice. So let's try it on. So I really like it. Like, it's a good weight of a necklace, dainty enough but solid that I don't feel like I'm gonna break it. I like the counterweight in the back. It kind of goes down pretty far, but I typically wear either strappy stuff like this or something that's pretty low cut in the back. So I really like that. If you guys have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. Also, how does it do with... Yeah, it's not tangling in my hair or anything, so that's really good. If you guys have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. Leave ideas for future projects or any requests that you might have. I do love hearing from you guys. I hope that this video was helpful to you and maybe inspired you to try something different, or maybe even to go back to your basics and your foundation techniques and just kind of revisit them and see where it goes from there. If you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please consider joining us on our Craft Along Club over on Patreon. You can just follow, or pledges start at as low as $1 and go up from there. I wanted to thank our sponsors, who are our patrons. Like the names of our sponsors will be down in the video description, along with their shop links if they have them, as well as maybe, I don't know if I'll have my ducks in a row enough to actually have it at the end of this video, but I'm working on getting a sponsor page put together for our end card. So probably not this video, we'll see. But thank you guys so much, all of y'all, everybody who watches and likes and subscribes and watches and doesn't like and subscribe, like all of y'all. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me today, and I'll see y'all in our next video. So until then, happy crafting. Bye.